Greetings and salutations, basketball fans, and welcome into a very special edition of the Hangout. On today's episode, we have three ladies who will be guiding the Toronto Raptors and their fan base through a very special broadcast on Wednesday, the 24th, against the Denver Nuggets, along with Kate Bearness and Kia Nurse. But right now, I got to introduce you to the homies. First and foremost, she was the very first voice of Mississauga's 905 doing play-by-play. Now you can catch her stateside. That's right. She went and flipped and got big time on us. Doing the Capital City Go-Go's, my girl Meghan McPeak. And also, you know her and love her from her time with TSN. She'll be working the sidelines for this game. The one and only Kayla Grey, 2 for 2, her second time on the show this year. We've only had 2 episodes. She's batting 1,000%. And my broadcast partner from the Raptors, 905. She's done NCAA. She's done WNBA. You'll catch her doing her first NBA game, adding color to the broadcast. I call her Ames. It's Amy Audibert. Ladies, welcome to this very special broadcast. And I'll start by saying this, and I'll direct this to you, Kayla. Last time we did a special episode of this nature, I started off the show by saying, what does International Women's Day mean to the ladies on the panel? And, you know, in hindsight, especially after speaking with my producer, Dwayne, that was like me going on like a Black History Month show and someone saying, hey, what does Black History Month mean to you? You gave me the perfect answer. It's an all-day, everyday thing for you guys. The fight continues all the time. So I'll start with this question, Kayla. As one of your male counterparts, your friends, you know, your coworkers in the industry, what's being asked? What do you guys need from us as your peers? And, you know, the two of you can also chime in after Kayla, but what's needed right now from the male counterparts in the industry, the professionals, and the people around you guys to support and to make this thing a lasting change?
I honestly would strongly just say move out the paint and let women cook, truly. Like, so long, I feel like women in this industry have had to prove ourselves and kind of our standing in this space. And really, this space belongs to nobody. We are more than proven. We are more than capable of the job. And as we've seen countless times, we're sometimes overqualified for the job. So for me, my biggest pillars of making sure that women thrive in this space is protecting us in this space. There's been way too many times that women have come forward, of course, as they've been victims of sexual assault or harassment, and they've not been believed in this industry. It's not been talked about enough. Another thing for me is equal pay. Pay us for our worth. Pay us for the work that we do. Pay us for the dues that we overpay as women. But also, you know, advocacy is also appreciated as well. And advocacy, not in the pandering sense of, you know, when it is International Women's Day, putting us all up on the posters and naming us or spotlighting us in that sense. But what about the rooms that we are not in? What about the conversations that we do not hear? I think that is what I would like to see from male counterparts.
Amy, Meghan, you guys feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I call it the lens of equality and just keep seeing us like everyone else. I do not like hearing for a woman or because you are a woman. I don't like those buzzwords. I just ask simply to be put on the same stage as men. And that being said, I mean, there's been tremendous men that have helped and mentored and uplifted me throughout my career. And I know I've been really lucky to have mostly positive experiences with them, but I just continue to ask to be put on the same stage, to be judged, to be praised, but also criticized the same way that men do. And I do think it's getting better. I mean, obviously we can, in our industry, we can talk about Doris Burke and, you know, in the NBA, Sarah Kustok and Katie Wingy. I had a conversation with an agent recently who said, well, because Katie Wingy is doing such a great job, those opportunities are continuing to open. And I guess, okay, but also just because you're good at what you do, this might be an opportunity for you. So I'd say just really being conscious of the language that we continue to put out.
Now, Meghan, you've experienced it on both sides of the, oh, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I just wanted to frame, you know, you've been on both sides of the border. And, you know, I mean, I remember when the whole race issue hit peak, a lot of Canadians felt like, oh, we're exempt and we're better than this. And then, like, so you've had the experience both in Canada and the United States of what a woman goes through to make it to the next level. So talk about that experience and how you see it from your vantage point.
Yeah, and I think too, with what Kayla and Amy said, they hit the nail on the head when you look at what men can do as advocates. And I know for myself, especially in my coverage of the WNBA, you look at the fact that NCAA WNBA, we're always saying the women's tournament or the women's game. We never say the men's tournament or the men's game. We always, for some reason, make that distinction. And for whatever reason, when it's unnecessary, I don't understand why we do it. Basketball is basketball, whether you're male or female. It shouldn't matter your gender. And I think the same goes for broadcasting. So while we're having these moments where we have an all women's broadcast, I think it's fantastic. But I am looking forward to the day when that's not the headline and the gender is not included in it. And, you know, you think of what you looked at this entire year with everything that has gone on in the United States, not just with gender equality and the fight for that with the U.S. women's national team on the soccer side, but as well too, as you mentioned, Akil, the uptick and the peak of racial inequalities as well too, that exists in Canada. And I don't care whether people want to believe whether it exists or not. I am telling you, as a Black woman and a mixed woman, it exists in Canada. Accept it. What we need to do is accept it, because the only way we can change it and be, you know, in a situation where it no longer exists is if we accept it and acknowledge it. But until we do, as a country, as a nation, as a world, nothing will change. So that's what I'd really like to truly see, because, you know, in Canada, we almost live in this bubble where we think that, you know, we have this notion in the world that Canadians are always the most polite and the nicest. But I've had experiences with Canadians that are not that. I've had that experience with Americans as well too. So while the American side is always put under the microscope and under a magnifying glass when something happens, Canada is just as bad. We saw recently the swastikas spray painted on I believe it was an elementary school or a high school in Montreal. That's an example that racism exists, and it was disgusting. So as much as we'd like to believe it doesn't exist, reality check. It exists in Canada as well too, both from a race standpoint as well as a gender standpoint, to Kayla's point of pay equity.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. The table has been set, and you guys have touched on some very key issues. So let me probe the second question, and it kind of feeds on the logo and the sweater that I'm wearing right now. The WNBA is going into its 25th season. And Kayla, Meghan, you guys both touched on the fact that there's a huge disparity in pay in women's sport compared to men's sport, but also in coverage, there's a disparity, right, in marketing. So I'm going to start with you, Meghan, on this one. What's the biggest challenge for women in sport right now? Like, which of these pillars or areas of concern is the one that you feel needs to be confronted the most, or even is there?
I think there is, and it's truly all of them. In some capacity, they all relate to the other one. You can't have an uptick in pay when it comes to contracts and whatnot unless you have an uptick in coverage. And you don't have the uptick in coverage if you don't have the uptick in marketing. So I think those three major ones, which is what we see in the WNBA, U.S. Women's National Team, National Soccer League for the women as well too in the United States, that we saw in the bubble experience. Those are the three biggest ones that they typically are talking about. And as well too, you look at college sports. They have, you know, giant marketing events when it comes to the men's side, but we don't give the same respect to the women's side. So you have to look at all three as one, but as well too individually, because you need to put the money into it. The return on investment that we talk about when it comes to paying your Black employees, respecting your Black employees, to uplift them and give them, you know, their flowers and give them the roles that they deserve, that they have on the resume with their experience. The same goes for women in sports. Give them what they deserve. Invest into them and get the return on investment, because the talent is there, the knowledge is there, and the success is there. But until we invest in the marketing, as well too as the coverage, we won't see the return on investment. You know, it's what, 4% of sports coverage is women's sports. That's ridiculous. It should be up in 50% and above. The same way that we treat men's sports, the women's sports should as well.
Amy, Meghan, who wants to go next?
Yeah, I would just jump in, and on top of that, like, just say, I think the biggest challenge, I think the WNBA players are some of the most incredible women in the world. People don't understand the side hustles. Sylvia Fowles, one of our all-stars, was studying to be a mortician on the side. And Jessica Breland, who I cover, has a side business. She owns and operates a spa. It's incredible. And these women play year-round, most of them. They go overseas. We know that. So when we talk about the marketing and the investment, don't forget, their premier job is still to show up and be one of the best basketball players in the world. And I don't know how they continue to have to have these battles from the shoulders up, and how I can do better and how I can increase coverage. And it's not their job. Their job is to be the best, one of the best basketball players in the world, and they do that. And so I think it's also just a matter of everybody else stepping up and being supportive. I think we saw especially Kobe Bryant do that in the last couple of years, and I think that's important. All those things are important because we have to continue to surround and uplift these women so they can entertain us through their gift in the game of basketball.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. The product is there. There is no denying that. And outside of what we're seeing on the court, my gosh, think about what we've been seeing off it. And I wouldn't just say because of this summer. Let's stretch back to before we even heard of Colin Kaepernick kneeling. Like, the women have been doing it when it comes to being at the forefront of social justice movements. And like you said, Amy, that is not their job. But I strongly believe that the WNBA, its existence, now that we're heading into season 25, and its existence on a day-to-day basis is an act of resistance. Because think about how, when it first started, everyone was talking about all these marketing schemes and tools: shorten the shorts, make the girls more attractive by society standards. And they were like, nah, forget that, we're going to do this on our terms. And on their terms, they have been so successful when it comes to the product, when it comes to what their players association is doing, when it comes to the education that they're providing their players to go out there and be on the front lines of a lot of these movements and conversations. You cannot tell me that that is not worth investing in. So now I think that the attention is on those investors, those that can put the money on the line, because the WNBA has shown, with the little piece of the pie that they've been given, they've been able to win every baking contest. So now we just need people that are willing and about it when it comes to the money that they're putting forth in this league.
All right, so now it's time for us to personalize this story a little bit. So I want to ask you guys, and I'll start with you, Amy. What's been the most surprising part of your journey to becoming a respected professional sports journalist?
Well, thanks, Akil. Sometimes I feel like that's still up for debate. To be honest with you, this whole thing has been, so I knew that sport broad particular was extremely competitive when I got into it. I still had no idea what I was getting into. And I think the most surprising part is, and I mean, if anyone's ever played a sport as an athlete, you're used to dealing with adversity or not hitting your goals and then just getting in the gym and continuing to work hard, and you usually see results. And sometimes in our industry, as a man or a woman, you could be doing your best, you could be the best, and you still don't get your goals. And so what do? You somehow have to find a way to get better. And I think I don't know if that makes sense at all, but it's just been this constant battle of understanding the reality of our industry. The decision makers are often looking for a specific, look or a specific voice, and that's not in our control. And I think balancing what's in your control, what's in Amy's control when I wake up, who am I, how can I present myself, and just it's a constant, I don't want to say battle, but it's a constant thing you deal with every day, is just being super strong in who you are, what you can do, and what you can bring. And I mean, that doesn't just go for women who work in front of cameras. I think that can go for anybody. But it's definitely something that I still touch back on all the time.
That's definitely super true. Being a performer leaves you very vulnerable because you offer up your skill set to people and they say, no, we don't think you're good enough, or you move on. So that's, that's something I've had to wrestle with and learn with in my journey. So great point there. Who wants to go next, ladies? What surprised you about your journey, Meghan?
I mean, I feel it when I look at what I've been able to do, like I have since college set goals for myself when it comes to my career. And I've managed to, at least to this point, hit all those goals. And, to Amy's point, I understand what she was saying as a former athlete, because when you are having a bad shooting night or you're in a shooting slump, you go into the lab, you figure out what's going on, you try to adjust, but at the same time, it's also more of a mental game. When it comes to athletics and playing, usually the mental game is what is preventing you from actually pushing through and, getting out of that slump, because your head is into it now, you're thinking about it. So for me, it's been the mental aspect that I'm really most proud of, is just fighting through the no's or fighting through the naysayers, or when something happens on social media that is out of your control, fighting through that, and just remembering why you're doing it and remembering why you got into this space and who you're doing it for. And I think the biggest thing, and I know I've had these conversations with both Amy and Kayla, is, keeping the right people around you to keep you not just level-headed and calm, but also too to be there when you think you're doing well. They can be critics of you, but where they're coming from in that space. They're coming from a place of trying to make you better and trying to help you be better, and not from a malicious space where other people may be coming from. So I think for myself, I'm most proud of the ability to mentally handle things and still push through, to know that I want to get to a certain place for my career, and to continue to fight for that, and to fight for women in this industry, because at some point we're not going to have these conversations anymore. And I'm so looking forward to that day. And I hope that, we are all able to see that in our lifetime.
Kudos. Surprise, surprise, Kayla.
Yeah, I think I would agree. There is a certain level of mental toughness that comes with being in this space. And I don't think that I learned that until I had my son Levi, who is almost 3, my goodness. But as women, you're almost taught like you can either do one or the other, but you can't have both at the same time. And this is not to say or push any type of parenthood or whatever for people to understand or get it. But I say that to say that our industry requires some weird hours, requires outside of the hours you doing an incredible amount of prep, which I don't think people understand the amount of prep that goes into, say, a 2-minute hit or a full broadcast. It's around the clock. And I think because we are naturally competitive people and we just want to show up as our best selves, we kind of buy into that clock and kind of never taking that time to pause. But I think what surprised me most was my best, most important work came when I started actually living my life and fighting for moments to live my life. Because what it does is it gives you context for the stories that you want to tell, whether it be in a broadcast or through a feature or through an article. Me being able to relate to players and people in the sports industry on a personal level of understanding, like, this morning running after the kids was a little bit wild, and explain to me how that goes for you as you're getting ready for preparations for your day as an athlete. Like, those types of little nuggets and things that like don't really match up to the numbers, for me, they've added so much depth to the conversation that I've been having recently and lately in our industry.
Ah, yes, storytelling, the secret sauce to a great broadcast. So speaking of which, ladies, you're covering a Raptors game. It's been an interesting season, COVID, relocation. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to start with Amy, on the spot. Okay? It's a fill in the blank, classic style. The Toronto Raptors season so far has been blank, 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 blank. Fill in the space. And explain. Amy Audibert.
I'm going to say, and I know this because I'm a nerd, the Jersey Devil. It's the world's largest roller coaster. That's basically been the season, right? Didn't start off great. We saw Freddie with the franchise record in points. We've seen some of these moments. And I mean, because we've been so spoiled with success up here, I think that's the expectation. So when we get something really excited, we get really excited. And obviously the last couple weeks have been a complete I'm not going to say disaster, because I think these guys that have been available have been playing very hard, but this is beyond our control, right? This is, we are playing in the middle of a global pandemic that is still very alive and real. And you feel like your heart's being ripped out for these guys because they can't be out there. We heard from Freddie this week, who confirmed that he was sick and he did struggle with symptoms for a time, and you feel sad because you feel like that's your brother or something, and you see, like, you watch him all the time. So yeah, I'm going to say a roller coaster, but I mean in the biggest way possible. And it's not over yet. That's the fun part. I think there's a couple more fun loops to go.
I think unpredictable. And it's really to everything Amy touched on. I mean, you have injuries, obviously the global pandemic and COVID, attacking the team, as it has with basically every team now in the league. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were one of the last, if not the last team that had been hit by the COVID bug that would, take down not one, but multiple players and also their coaching staff. But the way that they have managed to handle all of these hurdles, I think, has been very respectable for their season. And to Amy's point, it's not over. So I would go with unpredictable.
Let's call him the Adaptable Bay. That's what we're going to name this whole season, the Adaptable Bay. And I say that to say, listen, for how many years, and especially when we think about Nick Nurse, right, and his time and tenure with the Raptors, we would literally joke at the amount of times that he would switch up his lineup, joking like, yo, we've never seen a consistent lineup night in, night out. He's tinkering and Serge is here and now not. Like, there was so many conversations in the years building up to this season of just how adaptable this group had been. We'll enter the real litmus test, which happens to be real life as it stands with this pandemic, where we are seeing this roster look and take change and form in different forms every single game. And I'm not sure if those years can prepare any team for what this group has kind of gone through. So, when we say, take this with a grain of salt, truly, I always say take it with a heap with this season. But as Amy said, the season is not done yet. So, the Raptors are where they are right now, but they might climb up in the East standings by the time this is done. And that's just how this season is gone.
All right, so the Raptors play the Nuggets on the 24th. These are the three ladies that will be guiding you through that experience. But right now, I want to give them an opportunity to shout out some ladies that they are pretty keen on, right? Women's basketball is blowing up, so let's blow up some names. Kayla, who you got as your female baller to watch right now?
It has to be Aaliyah Edwards right now, and that's because we should be all in March Madness mood. For me, when you see her and what she's been able to do with Paige Beckers and that 1-2 tandem, is she is not afraid of the moment. When you look at UConn, their dominance, you walk into that building and there's a level of intimidation, and she was like, cool, I got this. And she is more than shown out in her time already. The way that she's been able to kind of make her presence known off the offensive glass, we know UConn loves their fast break, so that has helped huge. I'd say that she is one to watch, especially when it comes to the March Madness tournament that's up and coming.
Amy?
Totally unfair question, first of all. If we're talking about March Madness, I would say I have I'm in love with this. She plays for UCLA, Makeda Onyenwere, and she's dropped 30 on Stanford in the Pac-12 final. They did lose, but I think UCLA is one of those teams that's out of those top 8, but could very well be in it. But I'm sorry, that wasn't my player to watch. I went totally fangirl. And if I'm coaching, see, this is why I said it wasn't fair. You open the door. If I'm coaching, I always tell my players to watch Miss Liz Cambage. She is like it. First of all, she's a big, right? She's like 6'7", and she teaches guards why you don't come in the paint at times, which is totally cool. But she's so unapologetic, not only in her game, but just also her personality. She owns who she is. She's a model. She can get mean and nasty in the games. Her skill set, she can shoot a 3 if we're just talking about the game of basketball. But when I have the opportunity to say, go watch this female play basketball, for me, it's always more than just what they do on the court. She's one of my greatest, I'm such a fangirl when it comes to Liz Cambage.
Meg?
So shout out also to Amy's UCLA mention. There's a Canadian freshman on there, Bryn Maskowicz, who hasn't had a huge role with them this season, but I imagine will with all the UCLA is talent heavy, so shout out to them. But let's add what will be the third in the big three at UConn to add into Aaliyah Edwards and Paige Beckers. She is coming off of one of the most devastating injuries in her career at a very young age, and that is the DMV's very own AZ Fudd. And coming off of that injury, having her season kind of shut down because of the pandemic, not being able to really get in the gym and kind of just figuring herself out and learning about herself, but also figuring out how she can still recover from that injury, get back on the court eventually when she's able to suit up consistently and truly get back into the game. I am so looking forward to seeing her back on the floor because she was a phenom before this injury that she experienced about a year and a half ago. And her SI story, cover story was fantastically done. And it was very raw and very vulnerable for her to give us an insight into her recovery that she's been along the way. So I am so looking forward to see her tag up with those two in UConn. And Gino just keeps the pipeline going of UConn Huskies.
Wow. Paige Becker mentioned twice, but not chosen. 30-point games, set the record with 14 assists. Guess what, Paige? You're my
She's
choice.
the
All right.
easy pick
Um,
though.
Yeah.
Right. It was a
yeah,
lot,
but she's
truly.
also. Oh, God. All right, fine. Thank you very much, ladies. Let's close with this one, though. What do you all hope to be the lasting legacy of this broadcast on the 24th against the Nuggets? I'll start with Meghan.
I think for myself, Akil, and I don't want to speak for the ladies, but growing up in Canada, I didn't have someone who looked like me covering sports, especially covering men's sports too. When you think of it, there wasn't a woman of color in the sports realm in Canada. So to now have this in a way come full circle that we will be doing a broadcast that is one, all of women, and then two, when you look at the play-by-play, the color analyst, and the sideline, we will be three women of color that can now give that opportunity to little girls who look like us, that may be watching with their parents or their family members and say, hey, I want to do what they do. And to think that that could be the impact that this broadcast has, especially that it's something that I didn't have growing up, that is, you know, I'm kind of speechless, to be honest with you. Like that's what I hope that this broadcast has, is that little girls can look at all of us and say that they want to do this because they saw us doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about obviously the young women at home, but I can't not mention that I'm so excited about the challenge, that there is a select people that are already maybe hesitant to tune in on the 24th. And I'm excited to show them that, these aren't women who just wake up on a Wednesday morning and say, hey, let's go do TV today. I mean, we've been doing this. We've spent a lot of time working on these types of skill sets. And so I'm excited to also showcase that. Because if they want to watch the Raptors, they're going to have to maybe listen. And if they learn something, hello, that is going to be just amazing for us.
Yes, you better tell them, listen and learn. Listen and learn. I fall in line with the same sentiments as Meghan, in it that I used to stream ESPN illegally so I could see the likes of Lisa Salters just doing her thing as a producer, as a silent reporter. She'd be NBA, then she'd be NFL. But you rarely saw anyone in our country, and never saw anyone in our country that looked like us on television. And I'm so proud that we're not just having one anymore. It's more so a collective, and in different roles too. As much as I think about the future, which it should always be about, I think for me showing up on Wednesday, I would love to honor the past, the Kaylas, Meghans, and Amy's that had their dreams ripped from them and never got to see that moment realized. Those that had to dream with condition, those that were told that they just were not good enough. I think those are the people that I want to show up for on Wednesday, and do an awesome job, because that's what we do, is good jobs. So this is not going to be a surprise when we nail it out the park.
All right. Shout out to OGs like Norma Wick one time. Okay, so with that
Yes.
said, I want to close this show by saying, for myself and Dwayne Watson, our producer who pointed this out to me, we're both super proud of the path that all three of you ladies have gone on. We're excited for Wednesday night. We're happy that we got the opportunity to have you all on the couch, and we're happy that you liked it enough to come back. But with that being said, on Wednesday the 24th, the Toronto Raptors are going to do battle with the Denver Nuggets. And it's an NBA broadcast, and you can catch Kia Nurse, Kate Bierness, and these three beautiful souls beside me on that call. I'm Akil Augustine. This has been Hangout. That was for you, Amy, and we out.